I'm Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, Season 2, recorded on June 30th, 2016. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths Finder themes, one theme at a time, and today's theme is individualization. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room available for you. And Adam, this is for you. It's right below the main video window down there. We'd love to have you log into it. You don't need to create an account. Bottom left-hand corner, you'll see it says log in. Just click that, choose the guest account, put your name where it says guest, and hit log in, and that'll get you in the chat room. A little more than 30 in the chat room right now. We'd love to have you join us. It's the best way to get questions into the program. If you're listening to the recorded version or need custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, contact us. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center, just gallupstrengthscenter.com, for all your coaching resources and training needs. Actually, I should remind you, if you have not logged into the Gallup Strengths Center in a while, you might want to go back and just check it out. I'm not saying there's anything new, but you may have missed a few things. The Strengths 2.0 ebook is out there. You get your reports from out there. I get that question a lot, like, where do I get these things? And I have to remind folks, head out to gallupstrengthscenter.com, log in, make sure you're taking advantage of everything that is over there. You can also catch the video on both streaming and downloadable audio for programs just like this off of our coaches blog. Head over to coaching.gallup.com. Micah Librant is our host today. She's my favorite learning development consultant here at Gallup. And Micah, always great to see you on Thursday, and welcome to another Theme Thursday.
Thanks, Jim. Great to be here. Best part of my week.
It is a ton of fun. I always look forward to it. I wake up on Thursday mornings and I'm like, yes, it's Theme Thursday day. And by far the most amount of feedback we get from those who are listening is on Theme Thursday. So we really appreciate it when you guys send us nice little notes. Micah, today we're talking about individualization. Let's dig right in.
I'm so excited to be talking about individualization. It has been and continues to be my most envied theme. It's number 23 for me, so I really don't have it, at least not accessible. And I find I am always captivated and instantly I want to say connected to. I feel connected to people with individualization. I think probably because they're really good at connecting to others. Individualization is a relationship building theme that is all about embracing the uniqueness of human beings. So it really is all about people. It's about noticing and loving what's different about people.
Yeah. So as we dig into the definition, hopefully you've taken a second to download the companion guide. If you haven't and you're watching the recorded version, just stop it. There's a link usually above it, depending on where you're watching it. Actually, the best place to get all the companion guides we've made available to date is on the Coaches blog. So again, coaching.gallup.com, go to the GWSW tab, and they're all listed. If we've done it, the link is there. Micah, dig in and give us the definition.
So we're going to start with that short definition on the top of our companion guide, and it sounds like this. People exceptionally talented in the individualization theme are intrigued with the unique qualities of each person. They have a gift for figuring out how different people can work together productively. Pretty cool.
And with each theme comes a power and edge, and I like that we have that in this order because it really kind of helps kind of dig out or kind of build out the theme. Let's work through its power and edge.
Yeah, so when we say power and edge, it's a quick, I think it speeds up that definition toward what is, not just what is it, but what's valuable about it. So what's valuable about individualization? People with strong individualization talents notice and appreciate the unique characteristics of each person and can customize their approach accordingly. Like a casting director, they use their intelligence about people to position them to do what they do best. This creates a type of team synergy that leads to a more enjoyable experience and increased effectiveness. I think when you hear that power and edge, it certainly gives us a great understanding of what this looks like when it's mature, or another way to say, when it's applied. I feel like individualization is that ability to never give a standard yes or no when people are involved. And we know, working at Gallup, that when human beings are involved in any sort of process or research or understanding, that nothing's ever going to be black or white. And that open-mindedness, that the constant curiosity about the human element of the idea or the human element of the process, I think that's where individualization can really thrive, can provide some comfort. Without individualization, I think it can look like a fear that something's going to go wrong once you add people to it. Whereas with individualization, it looks like that anticipation that something can be even more right when you add people to the equation.
Oh, no, I think it's a great way to look at it. We're going to talk about arranger a little bit later, but that arranger, when being able to see multiple things going on, in individualization, being able to see individual people going on. I have arranger 1 and individualization 7, I think it's 7 or 8 in there, and so oftentimes there's no better day for me than working both on processes and people and putting those two together. So as we look at it, I'm super excited about digging into individualization. Also hard to say. I think
It
last
is.
week we joked that it's the best Scrabble word of all 34. It's probably the best Scrabble word, but sometimes when you are speaking it, it's hard to say. And there isn't a good short version of it. Like you can't shorten it up to indie or some of those kinds of things. That makes it tough. On the companion guide, we talk about raw and mature in its raw and mature state. So let's talk through that, and let's start with on the raw side.
So I really want to thank everyone who was a part of the great conversation on our Called to Coach Facebook page this week, because I learned so much reading through a lot of those, the thread of people talking about how do I use my individualization. And I think naturally some of those conversations bubbled up to how can my individualization kind of annoy people. People use the word annoy. And that is probably an applied understanding of raw versus mature. When we talk about raw and mature, this is not a scientific definition. This is my artistic approach at helping us think about what do these themes look like in real life, because your themes are going to stick with you at all times. They don't go away just because you're having a bad day. They might come out in a more raw form. So that's what we mean. It's understanding that there is a spectrum of development, and raw might mean undeveloped. It also might mean hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Mature is the other side of that spectrum, which might mean intentional, invested in, or sophisticated. If you think about raw individualization, I like this. I like to think about it as almost financial here. Raw individualization can be independent and costly, meaning I don't necessarily want to conform to anyone because I know that there's going to be something unique about every situation. So off on my own, I'm going to make sure that I customize every single approach to every single client or every single student or every single person in my life. That can be kind of costly. If you think about it on the mature side, incorporated and valuable. You hear that there's a difference between costly and valuable, and both of them might mean it might cost something. Might cost time, it might cost money, but I think the difference is on the raw side, we're individualizing and customizing everything without consideration or without thoughtfulness or maybe without a strategy. On the mature side, when you use the word valuable, I think it's that ability to understand when can I customize, how can I customize in a way that maybe is a little bit more scalable. And I like the word incorporated. So how can I be a part of a team that is giving a customized approach rather than sort of marching off on my own and saying, I can't conform. I think there is a way to incorporate your individualization and saying, hey, we should conform, and here are the places where we'll get the best return on our investment.
Yeah, again, that me and we, as you brought that in, I love that. I often think sometimes checking, having a litmus test to kind of think of, how am I using it is in individualization, those people who say, yeah, but to everything, right? So it's like, we need to do this. Yeah, but you didn't think about these people, or it needs to be customized for this. And so it's ultimate customization where absolutely everything might be customized, where as opposed to on the we side is, how do we build systems efficiently or scalable or that can be built out in a way where it benefits the unique characteristics of everybody. So, and that's not easy.
Yeah. No, it's certainly not. And I imagine if you have individualization, everything is always customized. It's just that question of when do I help other people see that as well? So my dad has high individualization, and he's an airline pilot, and he talks about it as being almost a more cerebral sort of process. It's that every single flight, yeah, you can go on autopilot on some pieces, but every single flight has a different crew, and every single member of that crew probably had a different morning before they showed up for that crew call. And it's taking into consideration that at any point, any one piece of the process could always go differently. So what individualization is for him is that ability to stay current, to stay spontaneous, and to stay in the moment. And I think that that is a great way to describe that. It's that embracing the fact that everything has a variable, and being able to lean into the differences in those variables that human beings bring to the situation. Now, I'm sure that when you're the person who's looking through that lens of diversity, you're always seeing those differences. The way that we talk about maturing it in a team situation is understanding how can I get out on the very front and help people anticipate those differences. Which brings me to another piece I have here. Raw individualization can be impatient, whereas mature can be anticipatory. I think about raw individualization being I'm in a meeting and we've already come up with a plan, and like you said, Jim, maybe I'm the one who says, yeah, but this isn't going to work, but you haven't thought about this, but you haven't individualized or customized to any one of a number of things that human element could change. Whereas the mature side is maybe let's get in on the planning side of that, so that I can think inclusively from the very beginning. How do I? It's not easy, but how do I build a system that will allow for some flex rather than having to do all the flexing myself?
Josh in the chat room, which is the reason why you should be logged into the chat room all the time. He says in my course, and the coaching course that he took with us, those who had individualization talked about how they took several months to find the perfect Christmas gift for their friends. Right? It's that selection and understanding who they are. Interesting is we're going to talk about, and I actually had a theory that as we look at likely and unlikely pairs is wrong. But you would think Relator might fit nicely in with individualization as understanding people and knowing them more. We'll talk about that more. A little teaser. Talk about that a little bit more coming up. What else on the raw versus mature?
I think part of it, raw individualization, you might notice this in its sort of younger state perhaps, and I don't mean that necessarily with age, but raw is just observing, whereas mature is customizing. So I think perhaps if you've got high individualization, take a moment and reflect on all the things you've observed even without knowing that you were doing it. Now, a way to think about using that as a strength is how do you get that observation out of your head and into the way that you treat people?
Yeah, I like the last example you have there. This is kind of the yeah, but.
Yeah.
You mentioned raw being unpredictable and it depends. That's another one of those classification statements. How would we change that it depends to be a mature?
So if raw is unpredictable, I think mature is thoughtful. And not just it depends, but it depends upon. And think about the wise sort of sage advisor version of individualization and being able to say and put into words, here are a couple variables we should think about. It is that ability not just to have a sense that things are different or a sense that things depend upon the people, but being able to say, here's some things we should think about. Here's what it will depend upon. Sort of inviting people into that lens for diversity that you have.
No, that's very cool. We're getting a lot of action in the chat room around gifts and gift cards. Like I think Carol had said, my daughter has high individualization. She never gives gift cards. She hates them. And you can see why, right? That's kind of a generic. It feels, I think, for some people, that may feel generic. Micah, we're seeing a lot of examples in this idea of giving when we think about individualization. Are there more, when we think about it, is it more than just customizing gifts? What other kinds of things could we customize for people in this realm?
Well, maybe let's lean into that gift idea a little bit more and think about what kind of gifts you give people as a servant, as a partner, as a spouse, as a family member, as an employee, as a manager. People with high individualization, the reason they're great at giving, let's say, birthday gifts is because they get such a fascination out of understanding exactly what that person needs at that time, understanding what motivates that person and how is that different from maybe other people who they're giving gifts too. So I think about, I've got two grandmothers still alive, and my grandma Skippy likes to start shopping for Christmas the day after Christmas. So she gets 365 days to shop, and she will research her grandkids and always ask us what we're into, and when we open up those gifts, it is exactly customized to where we are at that moment in time. She puts a lot of thought into it, and we always feel very loved. Now, my other grandma, Garnita, this might be because she has more grandkids, but every single Christmas, every single one of us receives the same crisp $5 bill in the same bright red envelope. Now, do I feel any less loved by either one of them? No, but it's probably that difference. Let's just jump right into an unlikely pair. Maybe that's the difference between individualization versus consistency. Individualization says the gift I can give to you is unique to you and only to you, and part of that gift is the thought that I've put into finding it. Whereas consistency says, I care enough about you to make sure that you're treated just like everyone else, that you're given a fair and balanced platform to display my love for you. I'm going to make sure that it's fair. Do I feel any less loved or excited by either of my grandmas? No, I feel, very honored by both of those approaches. So then, to come back to answering your question, Jim, think about the gifts that somebody with individualization gives other people in their life. Maybe it's the way that they approach a conversation, being able to give that metaphorical gift of remembering something about the previous conversation that you've had with them. Bringing up things, being able to know the right way to recognize somebody and using that. Maybe it's also just understanding the language that somebody uses and leaning into maybe some diverse nuances that other people have around the words that they choose to use or the things that motivate them. Your time with people is probably the best gift that you can give, and somebody with high individualization will probably give that time in a very unique form that makes the other person feel like they're the only person in the room.
Yeah, since we broke the companion guide, let's
We
look
broke
at
it.
the likely. I had read the labels wrong. It's pretty intuitive that Relator would be one of those that would pair nicely with, because at first I thought, man, Relator would fit nicely. I looked at the guide, I'm like, oh no, maybe it doesn't. And then I realized I read the label wrong. So, but Relator is, when we think about, so I need to spend time thinking about people. It would make sense, right, that Relator would be there to help me dig in with those people and know who they are, know their birthdays, know their anniversaries, know what's special to them. Keep all that stuff either in your head or on a spreadsheet. So that is the most likely pair, right? Pairing?
It is, and that's from a representative sample of 250,000 completes. The one that shows up the most in someone's top 5 with individualization is Relator. Let's talk about maybe the similarities and differences between those two. So Relator is about that two-way longevity of a relationship, having a close circle of trusted advisors who you grow those relationships well, and you come back to those relationships to feed yourself. I think Relator is probably a little bit more about the connection and the relationship, whereas individualization is about the fascination with the other person. Without Relator, individualization may not need to have that two-way street. Honestly, out of all the relationship building themes, I think about individualization perhaps as being the most in your head. It is, if you look at something like empathy or includer or even, adaptability developer, all of those really are about responding to other humans in a way that builds a relationship. Individualization is about responding to other humans' brains and being able to constantly think about how might I focus what I'm doing, focus my attention on just this one person, or think about what this person needs that might be different from other people. It tends to lead to great relationships, but I'm not sure that individualization needs that two-way street that Relator does. Now, when you've got them both together, imagine how powerful those Relator relationships are. They're customized, they are unique, they feel like you're the only person in the room when you're with somebody that way. So I think about maybe individualization is a little bit more about thinking about what people need, whereas Relator is about feeling how we can connect to each other.
And then contrast that to empathy, because I think sometimes individualization and empathy can look very similar, but I think they have some differences.
Yeah, empathy is about feeling what other people are feeling. So I think it's the emotional side versus the thoughtful side. And I mean thoughtful as in thinking, not as in considerate. What individualization is about is maybe collecting and understanding and almost archiving a picture of a person as you get to know them, and just being intrigued and attracted to and enthralled by all of the information that you can understand them around and understand what makes them different from all the other people in your life that you know. Empathy, you might be a little bit faster. It's about sitting with somebody and picking up immediately what is that person feeling. I think both of those are enhanced by something like Relator. Both of those are enhanced by something that says, and how do I build a relationship relationship with you. But really, empathy is about the feeling, and I think individualization might be a little bit more about the considering.
Oh, very cool. We're going to talk a little bit more about Relator individualization when we get into the theme dynamics portion. Let's go back up a step, though. We skipped complementary themes. For everybody who has consistency and achiever, they're freaking out at this point. You skipped complementary themes. We'll come back to it. So
I have adaptability, ideation, and strategic. So I'm going to give you exactly where we're going, but my strategic says there is a plan. We will come back. Don't worry. So now we're coming back. So complementary themes. When we talk about this, it's that thought of who might be a great partner for me. So how do I find a great complement in another theme, not what would blend with it, like our likely and unlikely pairs. Think about partnering with somebody with high input. So what input will bring is an open-mindedness for information and sort of this never full bucket, a receptacle for information, I think about as input. That could be a great partner for individualization, because what somebody with input could do is gather resources that are going to validate the value of diversity. Think about somebody with individualization might have that observant understanding that we need to account for a way to customize. And then somebody with input could come and say, hey, here's an article that will help us understand this, or here is maybe the history of a group of people that will help us be more inclusive to diversity. I think about it as being a credible resource to give us some more factual understanding about what makes people different that would certainly accentuate the almost intuitive understanding that individualization would bring.
Yeah, what about, I mentioned this one earlier, but what about a ranger?
So, Jim, you're a great case study here of what it looks like in one person. Maybe I should ask you. But a ranger, and I will ask you, I thought about a ranger first because, again, it's an executing theme complementing that relationship building theme. So with a ranger and individualization, what a partner with a ranger could bring, I think, is an awareness of when do we need to really go deep and give us a customized approach, and how does that approach fit into the bigger picture that helps us keep moving forward. So I think a ranger as a partner to individualization might help us push for some forward-looking progress or some efficient progress on a project. The right people, the right place, the right time, and plus that desire to move forward and get something done.
Yeah, it plays out nicely. You know, I've mentioned this several times in the program. We have a high school and college internship program here, and so I have nearly 40 students on the campus for the summer. Each one of them have their own individualized plan. They come at it from different times in school. Some of them are high schoolers, some of them are college, different years in school. We have some master students. They're all on different teams, and so they've got to be managed a little bit differently and worked with. And so I kind of spend a ton of time customizing, and it's not, I don't have long written out plans. We kind of, I have adaptability very high too. So we continue. It's kind of a living, moving, high activity, always talking to them, figuring out what's best for them. And I enjoy that because it's, like you say, it's keeping 100 ping pong balls under the water all at the same time, while those ping pong balls are people. So maybe that's a bad example because I'm not holding them underwater. But,
well, every ping pong ball is different when you have individualization plus a ranger. Whereas, maybe they're a different size or a different color. Whereas a ranger without individualization would say, they're all balls. Let's keep them underwater.
Yeah. So knowing who they are, knowing their names. I have Relator in my top 10 too. So knowing who they are, knowing their names, knowing where they're going and what they're doing, what school they're going to. I mean, I can kind of tell you all those details on all 37 of them today. And then what we're doing to kind of maximize the time while they're here. We don't get it perfect, but it's a plan. And so that's how, when we think of that Relator, individualization, a ranger, that combo working out, that has been a perfect role for me. We often talk about using themes, right? Using your themes to create strengths in the job that you're doing. And that's something Gallup figured out very, very early for me, and has been pushing me, moving me in those directions to be able to give me success in that. We've grown that program, Micah, year over year. We keep adding more to it. So I don't know if I can manage any more than 37. That's a big group to manage.
That was going to be my question. So how does individualization have a cap for you? Is there just no more information that you can hold in your head and still be able to be effective that way? Or how does that work?
I'm pretty close now to be scalable, right, which is really, really important. That's so the maximizer kicks in me. To be scalable and to make this work, I have to start delegating some of that authority downstream. So We have hired some college interns. Our motto is interns teaching interns, right? So we have some college interns that we've had for a couple years. They have taken over a lot of the responsibilities for the high schoolers so that I'm not managing those high schoolers on a day-to-day basis. Now that makes me sad. It makes my relator sad and individualization sad because I don't know those students as well this year as I've known them in years past. But it's the right thing from a maximizer standpoint. It's the right thing to do. And so every day I'm in this conflict. I'm like, oh, I wish I knew those kids a little bit better. And then I'm like, nope, Jim, you set up this plan because the greater good, right? When we think about individualization, it's always for the greater good of the individual. Mm-hmm. And they are way better off in a system where people are knowing and caring about them than if I tried to manage them all.
I think what you just described there is how individualization can have a great effect downstream and not just have to be that one-on-one piece. It's you have set up a system that's going to account for each individual being heard. Now, you might not have to be the one doing the hearing. I mean, what a great place to take somebody with individualization is what does it look like for you as an individual contributor, but also how do you create individualized perception from a leadership context?
Yeah, and teach others some of those concepts and look for that in others to be able to make sure they're giving them that care and that, what they need from a management standpoint. We know, the world needs great managers, and so we try to spin those out to be able to take care of those folks. So it's interesting, though. Hurts my relator. It does. I want to know these kids so well. And you don't know them except by spending time with them. And I used to just go in the room and I would sit with them for a couple hours at a time and just work with them, have my laptop. We'd just be working and talking, and it's a great way to get. I can't do that now because of other things like Theme Thursday that have gotten real popular. But so it's for me, that's just a really great example of how taking those themes and growing them. I mean, and that's not something I just did overnight, Micah. It's taken us 6 years to work to this point, each summer doing a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more, and changing and turning. So oftentimes, we get that question a lot. Hey, I've got these themes. What kind of job do I take today? Well, this didn't happen yesterday. It's been over the course of the last 6 years with very, very intentional planning and purpose.
Excellent.
Okay, let's few more reflections from you.
Thoughts?
It's just we think last thoughts on individualization.
Strategic communication ideation right here. I like to think of myself as the queen of the segue. And so you just said intentional thought over a long time. And I think that might be one of the things that individualization can give in terms of a gift to other people. I was watching Theme Thursday Season 1 this morning with a sick kid on my lap who, by the way, was enthralled by Kristen Gregory, you, and Kurt Liesfeld talking about individualization. And what Kristen said was she brought up a scientific understanding that every single person literally sees the world a little bit differently. When you think about the cones in your eye, it actually creates an actual lens that means that you see every color slightly differently than I do. And that we hear everything just a little bit differently, and that your vocal cords, there's nobody else who's going to have that sound. Your fingerprint, there's absolutely nobody else in the entire world with that same fingerprint. People with high individualization are almost born knowing that, as if that statement is like, duh. The rest of us don't tend to have that same individualized perception. So one of the greatest gifts you can give the universe, if you have individualization, is some reflection and some thoughtfulness on what makes you unique. And I think the best way to do that is to start with yourself. So if you have high individualization, today, after you listen to this great webcast, stop and consider some of the things that the rest of us might think are standard, and be able to put some voice, some words, some vocabulary to what's different and unique and special about yourself. So think about becoming an expert in being able to describe your own strengths and to describe your own style. Notice what makes you unique. Notice those times when everybody else tends to be agreeing, and you might have a little ping in the back of your mind that says, wait a minute, there's something we haven't considered. Notice those times when you know exactly what to give somebody, and that might be a gift like we talked about before, or it might be a great question. Be able to spot, are there certain times or certain instances where your individualization turns up, and be able to put that into some words and then voice the value of that. I think if you can really reflect upon some specific things that are different and beautiful about yourself, you can become a great great reflecting piece, a great mirror, a great oracle for other people to do the same. And in that, I would think about how can you grow your expertise in embracing uniqueness to help other people. That might mean honing in some great questions that help people think about their own uniqueness. Things like, how do you like to be recognized? What do you look for from your manager? What motivates you to take action? You are going to have that understanding that everybody is different, and that means you've got a unique lens to see talent. And I think your challenge then is to help other people see their own talent.
Yeah, I think the superpower in the office setting, by the way, with individualization, is that ability to hone in on everyone else's sweet spot and be able to say, hey, this person likes it this way and this person likes it this way. And then the mature version of that is guiding the team around you to get there, because not everybody's going to get there on that. From, they're not going to remember those things. They're not going to do those things. And so the immature version, the raw version of that, gets very frustrated when the group does not adapt. But the mature leads that initiative, and I think we need more people doing that in group settings to kind of sense and understand and know people, and then helping other people around them to maximize those gifts, those talents, whatever they are from that standpoint, to get them going. So I think that's I see that all the time in the office setting.
I love that, Jim. The mature version of that leads the initiative, and that takes an understanding that not everyone is seeing it. So give yourself and others some patience and some grace to realize not everyone is seeing those nuances, and know when are the right times that you can lead others through it. I think part of having high individualization is you could get really frustrated with a team who wants to customize everything. Turn that individualization back on the team itself and ask yourself, what are the best times I can bring this up? What are the best ways I can bring this up? How can I speak a language that matches what they're looking for in terms of value, so that I guide the team around this, rather than just sort of going off being independent, crossing your arms and saying they're missing the ball. I think it's, how do I take that ball and help people lead them through it? And that really does mean that sometimes you might have to say, okay, what's frustrating me about a partner who wants to customize things, and how do they best, how might I win them over to being able to see the customized piece?
Yeah, Katie sums it up nicely in the chat room. She says sometimes needing to be an advocate or a voice for a person who may not have, or who may have a different perspective, making sure that every person gets a voice.
I love the word advocate for individualization. I'm not sure that I would have used that, but I really, really like it, because I think if you are spending time focusing on what other people think and how other people react, you could consider yourself a champion, an advocate, somebody who can give some voice to some diversity that wouldn't otherwise be there.
Yeah. An ombudsman. That's my favorite way of.
Thank you. One of my favorite words ever, an ombudsman.
It's an awesome name. By the way, on the back of your companion guide, there are a bunch of words and descriptors, and we won't spend time digging in that. That's our gift to you. So make sure you've printed page 2 of the companion guide, and you're looking on the back there. I think that word. I wonder if that word we used that. It's not. We used it for something else though. An advocate.
You could certainly be an advocate with harmony, with includer, with a lot of
empathy,
other things.
Even in those, yeah. But I remember we highlighted that word. So, hey, let's talk theme dynamics. I'm going to set up the page. Would you kind of explain what we have here?
Sure thing. So when we talk about theme dynamics, this might be what really lights up people with individualization, is the infinite potential of looking at how might your themes show up when they're blended with another one. So we know that as you learn all 34 themes and you really love them, it's very important that you learn them statically, and you know that there is a definition to what each one's about. It's part of why we do Theme Thursday, is how do we help people fall in love and speak the same language around each theme. But then when you meet real humans, you get to realize that they're blended with other themes and that they never show up by themselves. So what we do with theme dynamics is we speed that process up and helping you think about how do you pair maybe just 2 themes together and describe the interplay between them. That's the idea of theme dynamics. What Jim's bringing up here on the screen is a book that Kurt Liesfeld authored that takes every single possible pair. So there's over 500 possible pairs, and it helps us just think, what might this look like if we were to say it in 140 characters or less? And you can use the ebook has this app that comes along with it. You can use this drop-down menu and blend together any possible pair. We have brought up the themes that were voted on the most frequently on our Call to Coach Facebook page this week, and we're just going to go through those and think about what might they look like if they're played together. The first one we've actually talked about because it is the most frequent theme to show up with individualization. So to add to our previous conversation, it is Relator. Two relationship building themes. Again, individualization is about thinking about the differences within human beings, and Relator is about making those connections, those deep, sustainable, sincere connections with other people. When you have them both, it might sound like this. The nature of another person is easy for you to see, but you also want someone to know the real, authentic you. I think it's a great way to summarize what I may have tried to say earlier in way too many words, which was individualization might be thinking about others and being fascinated, and Relator is that connection, close the loop back to me.
Yeah, two very powerful when put together. And a reminder, too, we vote for these on the Facebook group. So if you haven't joined us, facebook.com/group/Facebook. No, that's wrong. Facebook.com/group/call to coach is where that is. And the link to that is on our coach's blog, coaching.gallup.com. If you want to join us. Let's look at individualization and strategic.
Super cool. So strategic is a strategic thinking theme. It's about considering patterns and picking up on a bunch of different options and then very quickly knowing the right way to move forward. When you blend that with individualization, it might sound like this. You appreciate the rich diversity of humanity, and you can see and consider a broad range of possible options. So I think about individualization as deepening the human element of your plan when you blend it together with strategic. It's being able to say, maybe to offer yourself as a custom designer of people's best future. Not just to say, here's what's different and special about you, and here's how that can get you somewhere.
Yeah, let's look at individualization and developer.
Interestingly enough, I almost think there would be a lot of similarities between individualization and developer looking like strategic. If it's pointed at a human being, because developer by itself is about how do I take one step better, incremental growth, incremental learning and development. Individualization then would change that development plan. So if you had both of these, think about in the education world all the time we throw around this phrase individualized development plans. What a perfect way to look at how somebody with these two might just see the world all the time is how do I help people get better and understand this. Everyone's path is going to be different. It sounds like this. Your approach to mentoring is always shaped by the unique preferences and needs of the individual protege.
Yeah, no, very good. Let's also look at it with achiever.
Yeah, so individualization and achiever, an executing theme. Achiever is about forward progress. It's about completion. It's not activator, which is let's get going. It's I want to get this done. That's achiever. When you put it together with individualization, it could sound like this. You're more effective at completing a task when you can work in a manner that fits who you are as a person. So I think this is a great example of how individualization could also be about what do I need that's different from anybody else, and how do I progress in a way that might be unique and have some room for flex.
Yeah, very task-driven, and I think of some of the best project managers I've met are able to design the project plans with the individual in mind, and then taking advantage, as a great manager, taking advantage of the themes of the strengths, the way people do things great in those plans. So organizing them in a way to really, take maximum effect of everybody that's on the team. Hey, we did throw some folks off when we broke protocol on the guide, and we did likely and least likely. We moved it around. We talked about consistency as being least likely, and I actually want to look at that because that's one of those things, right, where these appear to be opposites, and yet they do exist in people, and they can exist together. So what does individualization and consistency look like when we put those
I'm so glad you brought this up, mostly because I've never actually used the phrase sorry, not sorry, but I think that's what I'm going to say about breaking from the code and going straight to consistency, because one of the best ways that we understand these is comparing and contrasting them. So sorry, not sorry. So consistency.
Hashtag sorry, not sorry.
Hashtag. I don't know what that means, but it makes me sound pretty cool. Consistency is about, it used to be called fairness as we were developing this. It's about finding a consistent approach, a repeatable approach, and doing it the same way every single time. I actually, when we taught our first accelerated strengths coaching course in Europe, I got to co-facilitate that with our great partners in Europe, and we had a participant who had individualization and consistency. When you think about those together, they do almost sound like opposites, because individualization says I want to treat everybody differently, and consistency says everybody should be treated the same way. Well, this woman was in charge of human resources for a small office, and she said, when I meet with every single person, it is imperative for me to know their background, their history, what makes them different, what makes them tick, so that I can help them follow the rules that apply to everyone. I mean, what a cool example of where her best strengths really going full force to help her be where she is. Now let's listen to what Kurt says. Both customization and standardization have value. You can balance individual relevance with group efficiency.
No, that's great. Mike, I just think it's one of those things, and this is where this tool comes in really, really handy, is because when you have those moments when you are like, hey, these seem opposite, or I wonder what this looks like together, it gives you a quick way to really come in and pull it up and give you a starting, right? It gives you a starting position. This is not definitive. This is not the perfect, right? It's Kurt's interpretation of how we put these two together. Lots of work, lots of feedback went into this, certainly. Mm-hmm. But it is a great way when you have some questions to on some of these, especially when they're far apart or when they may be least likely, to really reconcile that. And this is a reconciliation of those two, of understanding the group has needs, but also that the individual has needs, and one does not trump the other either direction, right?
Right.
That's magic. Right?
It is. It is. And of course, the best way to understand these themes, we do want you to contrast them and understand how they might seem unlikely, or maybe they even are unlikely. The reason we want you to understand that is so that you've got a great individual understanding, not to use that word again, but a great singular understanding of what are the ingredients here with CliftonStrengths Finder. But the best way to think about how do they go together is to ask the person who has both of them. And you might set that up in a couple different ways. You might say, hey, let's define both of these individually, and then tell me about a time where you've seen them both at play, or how how are these strong for you when you use them both together, or tell me which of these might come out stronger in certain situations for you, or very simply, how does that work for you, and just sit back and listen.
Yeah, coaching is not about telling, right? We're not reading, these are not fortunes that we're reading to them saying you should be like this. They're frameworks, they're a guide for us to be able to tease out, right? And say, how does this work for you? Tell me more about that. And then you could say, well, it could be like this or like that. How does that play out for you? So sometimes we see individuals who try to read these like fortunes, and it's not fortune telling, right?
No, that being said, if anybody needs a new business, how cool would it be if every time you got takeout, it came with a strengths-based fortune cookie? Like,
there you go.
Oh, I'm very cool. I've ended the meal. Now let's figure out what I can learn about my strengths.
Carol Ann, let's get those fortune cookies going. She's done a few other cool businesses around this, so it'd be great to have strengths-based fortune cookies. Let's next week we're going to cover input, talk a little bit about that, and then we'll look at these two together.
Yeah, so we talked about having a partner who had input. Now, what would it look like if you had both of them? Input is this sponge for information. People with high input enjoy gathering, collecting, being pretty open to understanding new points of view and new information. It doesn't even need to be relevant. It's that give me more. When you blend that with individualization, it could sound like this. You gather valuable resources, mindful of their usefulness. You share valuable resources, mindful of their relevance. So it almost sounds like individualization is that lens to help categorize and utilize all the information that you've gathered with high input.
That's good. We will be focusing on input next week, and as we look at that schedule, if you ever want to know when we're doing these, by the way, if you head out to the coach's blog, coaching.gallup.com, and there's a GWSW tab, and it has the date. Technically, it's a Monday. Those dates start on Monday. We do the show Thursday, but there's a lot more that goes into these weekly strengths wisdom. We have blog posts that come out on Monday that recap. Micah mentioned season 1, and every Monday, actually Sunday night, we post season 1 with its audio, So if you want to go back and hear it again, we have an easy way for you to review. We'd love to have you review those. And then during the week, we have people, I think now, Micah, we have, I want to say 6 or 7 who have coordinated with us during the week to post their blog post on the theme at the same time we're doing it. That had always been the vision of a kind of a wave, a burst, a blast of the theme all week being talked about, and I think we're getting to that point.
Yeah, you're almost touching on some individualization plus consistency. Every Monday, we all want to be doing the same thing. We want you to take it up in the way that's best for you, whether that's audio or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. But we want to make sure that we do it consistently.
Yeah, let's put a wrap on individualization. Any final thoughts from you?
I think it really is just about individualization is not about being different. Individualization is about embracing difference. And I think that it makes it even more powerful and even more infinitely powerful.
Yeah, no, right on. And I think again, it's a superpower. As we think about all of these, the goal is really how do I maximize or how do I use these superpowers that I have in the combos that they exist to change the world, to make it a better place, to make people's lives better. Guys, that's what we're in the business of doing. It's great to know. Right? It's great to know and be able to talk about it, but if we're not taking that out to people and we're changing the lives of people, I don't know if we're doing our jobs. So let me encourage you we've got all these resources available, more than we've ever had before. These resources are available for you in various forms. Micah, we talked about the blog. We're taking blog writers, right? If there's some folks who are writing about this and they want to submit it. Micah, what's the right way for them to get that information? What are we looking for from a blog standpoint?
So a great blog has one of two or both sort of categories. Either it's going to help people further their understanding of coaching, or it's going to help people further their understanding of CliftonStrengths Finder, or both, ideally both, but it really doesn't have to be. If you want an example of a great blog, just go out to coaching.gallup.com. We have the top 10 most read blogs of all time. We've also got the top 10 most read blogs in the past 30 days. So you can get a good read for what kinds of things are we looking for. Go ahead and shoot us a draft of what you're thinking would be a great blog to coaching@gallup.com. That actually goes over to me, and I read it. What I'm looking for is just making sure that we're staying true to the integrity of the instrument, and then we work with you to get it through our editors and get it posted. You can certainly repost or give us blogs that you've already posted on your own site. It's a great way to further people's understanding. So what we want is, like Jim said, if we're not changing the world a little bit every day, we're probably not doing our job. So if we can help by getting your message out there in a way that's going to help somebody else, that's what we're in the business of doing.
Yeah, it's our job to move the needle.
Yeah.
And even if it's just a little bit, I wake up every morning thinking, how can I move the needle just a little bit today? Some days more than others, obviously, but hopefully that is your mission and your goal as well. Remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources that we do have available at the Gallup Strength Center. I mentioned those at the top of the show. GallupStrengthCenter.com. Send us your questions, comments. Micah mentioned about being a guest blogger. Again, that email address for almost everything, send it to us, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget, you can catch all the recorded audio and video, and really the best way to catch these is in the car, in a train, on a plane. You can subscribe to those on the iPhone or Android. There's lots of different ways to capture this information through what we call podcasting. And so if you're not currently doing that and listening to these later, we love when you listen to them live. And it's awesome. We have a whole bunch of people out there, Micah, joining us in the chat room today. Live, rich conversation. But if you just can't join us, then the best way to catch those is later after the fact off of your phone, or you can watch them right there on YouTube. If you ever get confused about any of the links to anything, we've created the Coach's Blog to be that kind of one-stop shop. So the links to our Facebook group, YouTube page, iTunes, RSS feeds, iPhone and Android apps, as well as this weekly Strengths Wisdom program that we're doing, it's all on the blog, coaching.gallup.com. And we have a Strength Summit coming up, and they just released the app for it today. So if you're listening to this in August of 2016, sorry you missed the summit.
Glad we saw you there.
We did see you. That was great, Carol Ann. It was great to see you and everybody else who was there. Great to see you all at the summit. But and we've probably by then announced the dates for next year, which we don't know yet, but they are coming up. But that being said, there's a new app. If you're listening, head out to either of the stores and just search for Clifton Strength Summit, and you'll find our app. You can log in, make sure you have your code that we gave you when you registered, and you can get access to. And there's already conversations going on on the app about meetups and some things that are happening during the summit. You will want to have the app on your phone during the summit. Micah, I'm most excited because I get to see you during the summit. It's going to be awesome. We'll be together.
It's gonna be great.
We'll be together, and we'd love to meet you as well. But it's just going to be a great time for all the strengths coaches and champions and enthusiasts. By the way, somebody asked me the other day, Mike, what is the difference between a strengths coach and a strengths champion? And I said, well, I made up the term, champion.
I feel like that's my answer to a lot of things I get asked. Well, I made up the term. The difference between a strength coach and a strength champion, though, how did you answer it?
Yeah, well, I said a coaching is someone who's in the business, doing it, working with people along those lines. And a strengths champion, we always just as someone who's very enthusiastic about strengths and strengths finder and the things that it's doing, but kind of keeps it at the either a personal level or team level. To be honest, there's no black and white there. I just made that term up because some people said I'm not coaches. Like, I don't want to be a coach. Yeah. And so, great, be a strengths champion. Sounded better than enthusiast.
I think there is a really good piece around coaching is it does have to be centered around performance. Maybe enthusiast or champion doesn't have to, but when we certify our Gallup coaches, it's not just to help you understand who you are, it's to help you move the needle, like Jim mentioned. So as good as it feels to get to talk about yourself, strengths coaches have that additional responsibility to say, how is this going to help your performance or the performance of others?
Yeah. Very good. Well, if you found this helpful, we'd ask you please share it. Send this around, tweet it, put it on Facebook, whatever, Instagram. Oh, speaking of Instagram, Micah, how is the Instagram project coming for you? And how do they get your Instagram?
We're getting at least one new follower every day. My goal is 10 new followers every day, but we're getting at least one, which is good. Follow me on Instagram at @StrengthsTalk. And what I do, I've been toying with different things to put on Instagram, but for the theme of the week, starting on Sunday night, we post a great visual that has at least 3 words about the theme. And I think what we're doing is I've now sort of settled on being able to talk about this theme in terms of what do I love, what can I give, and what might I need. So it's not definitive, it's not necessarily prescriptive, but it's another way to talk about the utilization of that theme. And if you follow us through the week, you'll get all that information. You can obviously start following us today and go backwards. I think we started the week that we had empathy, and the goal is to just continue. So eventually we will have visuals for all 34, but a great way to stay current, to keep it in front of you all day long. Sadly, I see a lot of, probably too many people on their phone too long during the day, but if you're going to be on your phone, this is better than Snapchat.
Guilty. Guilty as charged. Just too much on my phone. Take those images that you're seeing there that we're making and incorporate them in some of the work that you're doing. We put those out there for you, and we'd love to have you send those along. That's one of the things that we do just for you guys, and so make sure you use them appropriately. With that, I think, Micah, we're done, and we'll say goodbye, everybody.